9 minutes to 10 a.m. Central African time. Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum. If you've just joined us, this is News and Views on Salam Media. Now, turning our attention back to the situation in Palestine. So, we're looking at the latest, where we're seeing at least 20 people have reportedly been killed, including 7 children, in the bombing of the city of Rafah by Israeli forces. Situation in Gaza also deteriorating. We see the UN, an expert from the UN, is warning that every single Palestinian in Gaza is going hungry as Israel continues its deadly bombardment of the enclave. Now, joining me this morning is Moulana Ebrahim Moosa from the Palestine Information Network. And he's here to speak to us about a workshop for Muslim media practitioners. That is, of course, the war of words in Palestine. And we'll get to that in a few moments, Moulana. But just quickly, your observations of the last 24 hours. What is the latest that has been happening in Gaza?
Indeed. Well, Jazakallah khairan for that, Zaid. I think at this particular moment, what we are finding is, uh, a deluge of factors that seem to be stacked up against the Israeli assault. Obviously, the Israeli forces may be deep within certain areas of the Gaza Strip, but we've got the issue of Israeli casualties, particularly the number of injured Israelis, that seems to be looming large over the discussion. Whereby, a few days ago, you had the Israeli newspaper Yediot Ahronoth reporting that there were 5,000 odd Israeli injured soldiers, 2,000 of them so serious that it constituted a kind of disability. And very quickly after that, you had the Israeli military, which was mum about in injury figures for a long period of time, stepping up and actually setting up a website to the effect where it says it will now publish casualty figures on a daily basis. And it then went forward to be able to present certain casualty figures, and seems to now have undertaken to produce that on a daily basis. This shows a kind of reactive measure by the Israelis to belatedly try and take control of the narrative relating to casualties. And the fact that they did this, I would suggest, indicates a kind of internal pressure within Israeli society to uncover what is really going on, and is the campaign going so smoothly well as Netanyahu and his war cabinet tried to present? That's one. And we've seen Israeli society immediately after that, actually, Israeli media immediately knocking holes into what the official government sources have said, saying that what we are getting from the hospitals does not square up with what you are saying, the relentless movement of Israeli helicopters from the battlefield to hospitals. That's one issue, and they also point to heavy kind of censorship of IDF or Israeli army spokespeople at hospitals, trying to control what is coming out. And I think this is an important part of the story here that seems to be developing. We sometimes might underplay or consider it a bit hyperbolic what the Palestinian resistance says, but they seem, whatever they've said, claimed over a period of time, now seems to be matched with this momentum that we are seeing in terms of casualty figures from the Israeli side. And another thing developing in the broader story is once again a determined push by Israeli families of those who are held in the Gaza Strip, to pressurize the government for a once and for all massive exchange deal to release their prisoners. So there seems to be a lot of pressure here, while the Israelis at the same time seem to suggest, or trying to suggest, that fighters on the ground are surrendering and they are on their last legs. The picture doesn't seem to square up, and there's a lot of pressure now going into the Israelis from the international community building, but also internally in Israeli society.
Hmm. Shukran for that. When we look at the current situation, I think there's been a lot of information, misinformation, disinformation from all sides. And then add to that, we've got Israeli propaganda doing its thing there. What is Palestine Information Network doing? throughout this whole period?
I think one of the most important contributions from our side has been, a whole host of community engagements, and I think the events from October the 7th have definitely been recognized as being totally unprecedented in our time. So people need meaning, people need consolation, people need to be able to be able to think, make sense of the high casualty count, deal with the emotions. So that's one part of it. The structured workshops that we've been doing for a long period of time is another. So many people are much more engaged, but we always advise people to not run on a bank or tank of emotion. Let us come to this issue with the informed understanding of the roots of the oppression in the region, our spiritual connection to all of this as well. So workshops have been continuing, particularly the one that we're speaking about today is for Muslim media practitioners as a starting point. Obviously, the war of words, the war of propaganda targets the whole of society. It affects the whole of society. It affects mainstream media as well. But the observation being made is that we do expect a higher standard from those who have sympathy and understanding of the who is victor, who is the victim, who is the oppressed, and who is the oppressor in the situation. But many a time, the kind of language that we are using is shallow, doesn't show a deeper understanding of the the realities on the ground in Palestine, and therefore we're focusing specifically not on the broad scope of propaganda, but on the words that are used, the dual meanings that could be conveyed. Why to use, if one uses a certain word, what does it imply, even if we do not recognize immediately its implications? What are the alternatives to those words that we can use? And we also posturing this or positioning this specifically to the Muslim media personality to juxtapose it with what is occurring in the Gaza Strip, and we've seen that it's not just a functional role that journalists are playing on the ground in the Gaza Strip. They are, in essence, one element of the warriors, and their deliberate targeting by the Israelis shows the power that they have and how they've adopted that particular role. And therefore, we are saying that in a grave moment like this, while maintaining our objectivity and absolute fairness, journalists also need to take a more assertive role. We need to present a more assertive language, and this will go a long way then to conveying the real realities on the ground. And it's also an imperative from a faith point of view, where we have verses where the Almighty exhorts us, speak qawlan sadida, speak with a clear and straightforward words, and be just, and so forth. And this is the values that seem to be we're trying to imbibe, as well as point out the specific diction that is problematic and suggest alternatives in a collaborative way.
Mm. Of course, we do have mainstream media. We've got social media. We've also got Muslim media. The Palestine Information Network, together with the United Ulama Council of South Africa, is hosting an online workshop for Muslim media practitioners dealing with this issue in particular, the war of words in Palestine, and about choosing words wisely and getting that message across. Could you perhaps share the details just in closing regarding this workshop and more information about that?
Yes, indeed. I mean, if anybody is watching this within the media space, and correctly you say, it's a broad space, and it's not just confined to your mainstream platforms anymore. People who are active as influencers on social media and so on are all welcome to attend this workshop. Very little time left to be able to participate. It literally starts in 30 minutes from now. It's an hour workshop where a ebook with specific guidelines relating to the use of language and vocabulary will be shared and will be discussed. So it's taking place on online platforms at 10:30 a.m. South African time this morning. People in the space from South Africa, from abroad, are encouraged to participate, and the number that people would be able to plug into this immediately if they have to register is 062301 2960. We've got representation from the United Ulama Council of South Africa, active media practitioners within the community media space. We've got Ebrahim from the Middle East Monitor will be addressing us, and also a step-by-step walkthrough this particular guide that will be shared. So, welcoming everybody who could still join us at this late stage, or even after this, if people want to interact, people within the media space would like access to this particular document to be able to give a tentative framework for dealing with vocabulary, we'd be able to gladly share it with them.
All right, shukran so much for that. All right, that was Moulana Ibrahim Moosa speaking to us about the war of words in Palestine, and that, of course, regarding an online workshop for Muslim media practitioners. That brings us to 2 minutes past 10 a.m., which means that is, of course, the end of the show for this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure keeping you company and standing in for Julie Ali. Just a recap of what we've been discussing through the course of this morning. Of course, we kicked it off with a conversation about the political landscape in South Africa leading to the 2024 elections. We spoke to a governance expert, Professor Sam Koma. Later on, we then spoke to Mark Hayward, a social justice activist and member of Change Starts Now, about that newly launched political party, political movement, however would you like to refer to it as. And then we had some reaction to the Zara campaign, which depicted similarities of the genocide in Gaza, an advertising campaign absolutely ghastly. We spoke to Mohammed Siraj from Muqawama al-Islamiyya about that. And we also spoke to political analyst, activist, and writer Aisha Kaji about the humanitarian situation in Sudan, where around 3,000 organizations have ceased working in that country due to an ongoing civil war, which has claimed millions, rather thousands of lives and displaced millions. And finally, then we spoke to an activist out in Durban about the E. coli levels moving into the holiday season. And finally, then the war of words, as we just concluded that conversation with Moulana Ibrahim Moosa from Palestine Information Network. All of those conversations are up on Salam Media's YouTube as well as Facebook channels. You can always catch up with those and pick up on those at any time, anywhere. So, yeah, I'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. It's been an absolute pleasure keeping you company. Next up, Juz 28 by Sheikh Tawfiq ibn Asayr.